القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن الآية وقال تعالى في شأن حبيبه مخبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحاب سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم وصل عليه صلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا رحمة للعالمين. As we all know and we're all aware, the winds of the blessed month of Ramadan are almost upon us. The blessed month of Ramadan, which is the month of fasting as we know, but more importantly, or as important, is the relevance or the relation to this month with the Holy Quran. The blessed verse in the Holy Quran where Ramadan is mentioned, remembering that this month, the month of Ramadan, is the only month which is mentioned by name in the Holy Quran. And not just that, the benefits of this month are abundant. And also in relation to the Holy Quran, this is the month in which it was revealed upon the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah, today and over the coming weeks, next Jummah, inshallah, if we see it, will be the first Jummah of this blessed month. And we will be, inshallah, talking about fasting in itself and the virtues of this form of ibadah, this form of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the material that I looked at was the Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, as he mentions in this great work of his, a chapter regarding fasting. And this work, I've said it before many times, that this work of Imam Ghazali rahimahullah is one of the great works of Islam. So great that the ulama have mentioned this statement, this mashhur and famous statement that is said regarding this work, that if the books of Islam were to be lost and just the Ihya of Imam Ghazali was to remain, it would suffice all of the books that were lost to the Ummah. Why it would suffice? Because in this book he goes through absolutely everything. From beginning to end, he discusses the rights of worship. He discusses dunya, how to live, the ideal way to live in the dunya. He discusses the akhirah. He discusses success in this life, success in the akhirah. Just about absolutely everything that you can think of, what that is related to our religion, he has one way or the other touched upon it in this book. And fasting, which is a massive part of our deen, has its own specific chapter in this book of his. And he begins by introducing it to us in a beautiful manner. How he says it, he says, Sawm, fasting, is a quarter of faith. Sawm, fasting, is a quarter of iman. A quarter, rub, 1/4. Ek chotha hissa, fasting is of iman. And then he continues and he says, why we deduce this is because the Prophet ﷺ said that fasting is half of sabr. Yeah? Fasting is half of sabr. And elsewhere the Prophet ﷺ says that sabr is half of iman. So he says fasting is half of sabr in one narration, and in another report he says sabr is half of iman, and that results in what? Fasting is a quarter of iman. Fasting is a quarter of our iman. Then he continues and he talks about how fasting is so beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fasting, you keeping a roza, you fasting for the sake of Allah, it's very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, when you fast, naturally, when you fast and your insides become dry, your stomach becomes empty and dry, your passage which leads to your stomach becomes empty and dry. This leads to a smell which emanates from your mouth. This leads to a very strong smell which emanates from your mouth. And I don't use the word bad here. I say strong smells. And the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and the ulama tell us that the breath of the one who fasts, this is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than fragrance itself. The strong breath of the one who fasts. So this is why when somebody is fasting and they are close to us and they are speaking to us and we may smell something from them, you should never make a point of it. You should never say to them, if the fasting person, there is a smell coming from his mouth, no, if you don't like it, you are in your own place. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that smell is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah loves that smell of the breath of the one who fasts for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you talk about the reward of this and the reward of fasting. When we look into the teachings of the scholars of our deen and what they have done for us, we find a particular categorization which comes all the way from the Prophet ﷺ to us, a categorization of reward, of neki. And one generalization is that when you do a particular act, Allah rewards you 10 times. Not once, but 10 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for that. An example of that is when you recite the Holy Quran. You recite the Holy Quran, there is a narration where the Prophet ﷺ said, من قرأ حرفا من كتاب الله فله حسنة والحسنة بعشر أمثالها لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف بل ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف. Our teachers made us learn this hadith by heart in our first year of studying. And this hadith I'll never forget for the rest of my life, why the Prophet ﷺ tells us what reciting the Holy Quran will attain you. What does he say? He said that the one who reads the Holy Quran, for him there is a neki, for him there is reward. He doesn't stop there. He says a neki, a reward which is multiplied by 10. And then what does he say? That every letter, meaning I don't say that alif lam mim is one. Yani somebody recites alif lam mim, he does not receive 10 rewards. Prophet ﷺ said, alifun harfun, lamun harfun, wa mimun harfun. To explain to us this, and when one recites the Holy Quran and he says alif lam mim, 3 letters have been recited, which is resulted in him accumulating 30 rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you look at the Holy Quran and you look at how many letters there are in the line of the Holy Quran, what a person can attain. You look at how many letters there are in a page of the Holy Quran, what a person can attain. And then you talk about the Quran which is recited in the nights in our masajid, in the month of Ramadan, on the nights, when you listen to that Holy Quran, what reward you will attain. Only Allah knows the magnitude of that. But this is for reciting the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that leave the reward of the fasting person to me, because I will be the one to reward him on the day of judgment. Allah will reward the fasting person on the day of judgment. We have not been given a number. We've been given a number for reciting the Holy Quran. We've been given a number, a multiple of the one who reads namaz, ba jama'at. We've been given a number for these things. We've been given a number for doing favors and being kind and polite. or doing a neki, a general neki. But for fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, leave it to me on the day of judgment. Leave it to me on the day of judgment, I will be the one to reward. So this is a very beloved, a very, very mahboob amal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we can, inshallah, for this month, for the rest of this month, we can complete as we suppress our desires for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And very quickly, the 3 stages of fasting. Imam Ghazali mentions in there here the 3 stages. He says that the first stage of fast is the fast of the individual, the fast of the layman. And what does he describe this fast as? The first level, he says this is the type of fast where someone stops eating, stops drinking, and does not have sexual desires or relations during the time from suhoor to iftar for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he just refrains from these 3 things. Then he says you have the fast of the distinguished, you have the fast of the khawas, of the distinguished people. And what is this type of fast? He says this is the fast which is the first level and more. What is the extras? He says this fast alongside not eating, not drinking, not having relations with one's spouse from the time stipulated, but also these people, they refrain from committing sins with their hands. They refrain from committing sins with their eyes. They refrain from committing sins with their tongue. They refrain from committing sins with their entire body for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you have the highest level of fast. And he says this is the fast of the elite. This is the roza of the elite. Accompanying level 1 and level 2, he says the third level of fast for these people, alongside level 1 and 2, these people, they do not busy their hearts throughout the day, all day, and as long as they are fasting, their heart does not leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their heart does not occupy anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani throughout this, alongside the compulsory acts of not eating, not drinking, and not having relationships with one's spouse. And then you have, alongside that, protecting your entire body from sinning, from doing things which will earn the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the third level, these people, the elites, the highest class of people, these people, they spend their time not wavering, not going side to side, no, but they are busy throughout the day in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here the ulama mention, I'll finish up on the final point. They say for me and you, for the layman, it's very difficult to look at the heights of the third level. It's very difficult to do this. But he said we should at least aim for the second level of fast. We should not ruin our fast. When we are hungry, we are thirsty for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not ruin our roza. We should not kharab it by committing sins, by doing riba, by swearing, by cursing, by lying, by committing acts of sin with our eyes. Protect your fast by protecting your body from the sins which will lead to the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray Allah gives me the ability first to act upon what I said, and then all of us will ask in da'waya. Alhamdulillah.
Please. ये जो बिल्कुल दरवाजे के सामने है वो अगली सफे पहले मुकम्मल खा लें। आगे पहले ये आगे जगह काफी होती है और पीछे लोग बैठ जाते हैं।
Yes,